But a lot of other teams in the Big 12 went bowling or will go bowling. Here is the list of the games. We'll slowly but surely get maybe 20, 30 seconds on each game without getting too lengthy on it. But the first game that pops up will be Texas Tech and Cal at the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana.
I can tell you one thing, of having been to both places and used to live in Bossier City, Louisiana, there are not two different places on earth than Berkeley, California, and Shreveport, Louisiana.
I saw Eli Manning and Ole Miss beat Nebraska in the Independence Bowl many, many years ago.
I told the story to Tim Brando. Like, he was doing the luncheon when I was like 10 years old, and Danny White, who I would wind up doing a podcast with for a year, he was the guest speaker. And so it's kind of wild how your life comes full circle. But, I
would say this is a disappointment for Tech to be in this bowl game, even though it's good to be in a bowl game.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, they're lucky to be in a bowl game.
Yeah.
They were in a position there midway through the season where that was looking unlikely, and they actually finished pretty strong. That Texas game notwithstanding, they finished pretty strong to get into a bowl game. I mean, they went on a nice little run there, beat the mess out of Baylor, beat UCF in a close game, got bowl eligible, and then, hoped to fare better against the Longhorns. And, I mean, Texas is just built a bit different than everybody else in the conference right now, so that wasn't a total shock that they got beat in Austin the way that they did. But, I think it's a disappointment from the position of you're not going to be able to match last year's record, and from the standpoint of, you just barely got bowl eligible. But look, beggars can't be choosers, right? I mean, there's a lot of teams sitting at home that would love to be in a bowl game and getting those extra practices. So I think from the standpoint of you were 2 for 2 in making bowl games under Joey McGuire, you dealt with a lot of hardships this year, and you still found a way into the postseason, even though with about 5 weeks left, it looked like you were not going to be able to make it there. And now you play a pretty good Cal team. Now the winner of this will be above 500. The loser will not.
That's right.
So that's something to factor in that I think makes it a little bit important, because let's face it, finishing 6 and 7 is not. That doesn't feel good. You can't really spin being below 500. Yeah, so this is a big game from that standpoint for both of these teams, and just momentum riding into the offseason. But, you expected a bit more from Texas Tech this season.
Moving on, February 22nd, the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. I don't know if you can get longer than that same thing. In Tampa, UCF and Georgia Tech with Haynes King at quarterback. Paul.
I'm super interested in this one. UCF's already sold out their first allotment in this game, which shouldn't be surprising. It's only about an hour and a half away, if you don't hit traffic on I-4 there. So, this should be a pretty cool one. Look, Haynes King showed some stuff at Georgia Tech. They're on the upswing for the first time in a little while there. So, it should be an interesting one. I mean, we'll see opt-outs and transfer. Like, bowl games are so hard to peg now, because of these teams, I have no idea what the roster is going to be come bowl time.
I used to love the bowl season, watch every damn game, and now I don't even have the time they're playing the game.
Well, it is college football. That's what we cover, so we better get fired up for bowl season.
No. What I'm saying is I used to love watching every bowl game. I watch them, but it's not like half the time I don't even know what time someone's playing, even though it's my job.
Well, this goes into my other thing about the whole college football playoff and the crowd of, basically towing the company line about keeping it at 4. Is that, you're going to, first of all, the whole regular season argument already been shot to hell, right? We've already seen how that's basically been blown away, and how it was total BS to begin with of the importance of the regular season. Like, that's done and gone away with. But then the other part was like, well, what about all these bowl games for these teams? So you mean to tell me that people didn't just crap all over Liberty being in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon, and how there's not going to be a lot of tickets sold from the Oregon side, and how nobody's going to care about it and all this? And that's the sanctity we're worried about?
Yeah.
As opposed to, imagine if that was a playoff game.
Yeah.
What would be more exciting? Liberty, Oregon, Fiesta playoff game, or just the regular Fiesta Bowl with nothing else riding on it? And that's why I think that's another part of the argument that just gets blown to smithereens. But I think UCF, part of it is probably a little bit of Gasparilla fatigue, and yet it's close to home. It's a nice opponent. There's a lot of question marks, as you said, with who plays and who doesn't, as far as all these games go. But that ought to be a nice little contest, and good on UCF for, again, making it to a bowl game. That didn't look like it was going to be in the cards there for a little while, and they fought back out of a hole and got there.
Kansas, a team that was up and down, Nice run, I think, in the end. They play UNLV. Of course, the tragedy thinking about the campus at UNLV, the basketball game tonight has been canceled. An active shooter that was on campus who is now deceased. In Phoenix against KU and UNLV, a nice story with Barry Odom.
Yeah, it really is. We got to stop having these tragedies, man. It's just so terrible. But to focus on the game, this will be an interesting one. Again, seeing as how many people are on the rosters and all that, and Kansas. It'll be if Jason Bean's back. I mean, it'll be his last game there anyway. So should be an interesting game. I think Barry Odom, what he's done at UNLV this year, they're all ready to go. With a certain coaching staff, then had to pivot right after Jimbo Fisher took Bobby Petrino there, and Barry Odom's rolled with it, and they're 9-3 and rolling along. And Kansas, did it with whoever was at quarterback this year, and that was really impressive. And Lance Leipold continues to, build something there in Lawrence that was not there for a very, very, very long time. And they
Almost
were
a couple of decades.
Yeah, they were the easiest out in college football for a long time.
Yeah, Barry Odom and the Rebs are a great story. He's done a really good job with that program. I don't know how excited you get for it if you're Kansas as far as the matchup goes, but it's a good team that you're going to be playing. You don't want to overlook them, but a good opportunity for the Jayhawks to win 9 games, which would be a really big deal.
Win a bowl game, which they didn't get to do last year.
Yeah, win a bowl game on top of that or alongside that. So, yeah, that would be a nice feather in the cap of Lance Leipold, and the current state of the program would be to win a bowl game and then also get win number 9. So, yeah, there's still a lot to play for. And then, of course, Jason Bean playing in his last game with all the contributions he's made over the last few years amongst other seniors and guys that will be departing. So, yeah, there's plenty to play for there for Kansas in Phoenix.
On December 27th, Wednesday, 2 games. You have the Mayo Bowl. This is Jennifer's favorite. She loves mayonnaise. Charlotte, North Carolina, West Virginia, North Carolina. And then the Tax Act Bowl, the Texas Bowl down in Houston, which Baylor's played in a couple of different times. The first time I was here when they lost to Illinois. Oklahoma State against Texas A&M, old Big 12 game.
Will be interesting to see A&M in that game with what's left of their roster. I mean, there's some portal departures, some that matter, some that reserves matter because you lose guys you can't field the same roster you're going to have. I think the Duke's Mayo Bowl is a pretty interesting one. West Virginia, North Carolina. Look, North Carolina is not going to have Drake May in that game. There's no way in my mind that he plays in it. And so an opportunity for West Virginia to get to 9 wins. And North Carolina also, the way that they started out and having the quarterback they did, I promise you they had no thoughts of being in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And that's not to knock the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but they thought they'd be in a better spot than that.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia thought they might be firing their coach around this time, and now they got a chance at 9 wins themselves, so not too far to travel. I saw some complaints from some segment of the Mountaineer fan base about this game. I didn't get to the bottom of it necessarily, but I don't think it was a rousing 100% approval rate on the excitement level for this game, but I guess that's probably any fan base. But shoot, man, North Carolina, semi-home game for them, I suppose, they're being in Charlotte. But I think that's a fun destination and, nice opportunity for West Virginia to get to 9 wins. That'd be a really big deal for Neil Brown and company, and I'm like you, Paul. I don't think Drake May's probably playing this game. I don't see the benefit for him. But that's a good little solid matchup. Nothing more, nothing less here. And then with Oklahoma State and A&M, Oklahoma State, I'm sure would love to get the bad taste out of their mouths from the Big 12 championship game. Don't need much motivation playing A&M, who you haven't seen in a while. I think with the history there, that should make for a really nice build-up and plenty of motivation for the Cowboys and probably for the Aggies as well, although I think most of their focus is on just trying to sort through the staffing and roster mess that they're kind of in at the moment as things are changing over. So, that's a fun little throwback. But what version of A&M do we see in the midst of all this change remains to be seen.
Elijah Johnson will continue, I think, to coach, despite he's moving on to Sarah Robinson. They played each other in 2019 in the same bowl game. I saw Wet Blanket mention it, looked it up. Back in 2019, Oklahoma State lost to A&M.
I do college football's got to redo the calendar, and they've got to make these games because the transfer portal happening before this is really bad. The draft, all that.
That's what I mean, though. That's what I'm talking about a second ago is what are we saving when it comes to these bowl games? Like
Yeah.
the way they're currently constructed with the calendar and all that you're mentioning, all these opt-outs, all these different, coaching changes and everything. It's just sort of a mess, and I don't want bowl games to go away by any means, but I do think that's something you look at and like we're saving that. So like let's not expand the playoffs so we can save the Duke's Mayo Bowl as it's currently sitting. I just think that's a weird argument.
If you had to suck down a bottle of mayonnaise, which one would you want?
I'm not
I want
doing
Miracle Whip.
I'm not doing it.
I actually am a big fan of Duke's.
Okay.
I'm a big listen. Duke's
Because you like
mayonnaise.
John Wayne.
Listen, Duke's is a big supporter of college athletics and college athletics broadcast.
God.
And let me tell you, I love Duke's mayonnaise.
Thursday, December 28th, a couple of games. Kansas State, we just spoke with John Kurtz about them. NC State, 2 top 25 ranked teams. And then that evening, Oklahoma and Arizona, which I think ought to have a nice little tasty feel to it, although Dylan Gabriel out, although Jackson Arnold's played a lot more down the stretch. Those two play on the same day, the 28th.
I think the Alamo Bowl is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, Noah Fafita's going to be there and Jackson Arnold, so that's a future Big 12. Well, that's not a future Big 12 matchup. Never mind. That would have been a Big 12 matchup if Oklahoma wasn't leaving. But look, an outgoing Big 12 team versus an incoming Big 12 team should be an interesting one. I think Oklahoma's probably they've not lost a lot to the portal yet, outside of Dylan Gabriel, as far as I've seen, Craig. So their roster pretty set for that game.
I thought they may have had a running back that's leaving, but again, everybody's got somebody on.
Outside of Dylan Gabriel, which is obviously significant, he's your starting quarterback, but the heir apparent's going to play in this game, and that's probably a good thing, and that he's going to have those 3 weeks of practice.
Yep. That's what I think bowl games are better for teams who are trying to get some experience, especially teams on their way up.
Yeah, I'd rather be the person eating at the end of the Pop-Tarts Bowl than the Mayo Bowl. That's for sure. Chris Kleiman, I think, said he's like a chocolate fudge Pop-Tart guy, I think is what he said in the interview that he did. But, yeah, I mean, it's a fun top 25 matchup on paper. K-State needs to win to hang around in the top 25 at the end of the year. And they obviously have some questions right now as far as OC goes, but this will be all Avery Johnson. So that'll be fun to watch and see kind of this – middle of the transition of Kansas State from what they were to what they're going to look like next year, right? Like, do they have the OC in place? Is that even, what's going on with Avery Johnson by that point? What are kind of the rumor mills around him? But, yeah, I think that's a fun matchup on paper. K-State can also go win 9 games, which would, is always a nice mark to reach. And then Oklahoma and Arizona, I think this is a lot of fun with Fafita versus Arnold in the quarterback battle. Oklahoma's had a few guys enter the portal, but nobody that like makes your eyeballs bulge out with shock, like with the exception, I guess, of maybe Dylan Gabriel, and I don't think that was shocking either. But yeah, that'll be a fun game. I mean, that's 2 good offenses, and I think that'll be exciting to watch there in the Alamo Bowl. And that's always one of the better bowl settings, I feel like, is San Antonio for the Alamo Bowl. They do a really good job down there, and usually the games are pretty wild. At least that's how my memory serves me.
Yeah.
So I would expect this one has got a great chance to live up to that hype.
All right, the next day, a couple of teams. Memphis, kind of just, they've been there. I mean, they kind of some good moments or two, but Iowa State, Matt Campbell and the Cyclones in Memphis, Tennessee, in their backyard at the Liberty Bowl that will also be renovated yet again sometime around the corner.
It's wild to get to play a bowl game at your actual home stadium.
Yeah, is that fun? Like,
yeah,
I don't even know. Is that fun?
Hey, guys, you made a bowl game. Where are we going?
Home?
Right here.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Do you enjoy that or not? I'm not sure.
I think you still get swag.
Yeah.
But I would think that's a little bit difficult. It's not like when Miami hosted the Orange Bowl in '83 and beat Nebraska. That was pretty good. They were right there. And being in Miami, with all due respect, Memphis, though, well, if they're home in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl against Iowa State.
Yeah, and look, Iowa State should have pretty much, other than the portal guys, I mean, their roster's so young because the upperclassmen got cleaned out in the gambling probe. So, I mean, you should probably see most of Iowa State's roster here. So pretty interesting one in Memphis. Memphis, good year, not what they wanted. It's not the Norvell years anymore, but you can't have him back. But Iowa State, I mean, this should be an interesting game. I mean, we'll see. And it's so hard to peg. Like, it's just so hard to peg.
I mean, here's the thing: Memphis can win 10 games.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they had an okay year. I mean, they weren't there in the AAC championship game, but they're 9-3. So, I mean, the opportunity at 10 wins would be a really big deal. Seth Hennigan's a quarterback there from the state of Texas that's had a very productive career there for the Tigers. Iowa State's obviously very well coached. I don't know how well Memphis matches up with them, but I think playing at home and having the opportunity for 10 dubs is more than enough motivation for the hometown team there. And then Iowa State obviously wants to finish strong and propel themselves into what should be a very exciting offseason. They got a chance to win 8 games, finish 8-5, given how the year started. I think would be a tremendous success for Matt Campbell and company. And plus, you not only finish off with a win, but then you go into the offseason where basically all of your big contributors, especially on offense, are going to be coming back next year, or at least on paper are scheduled to, given the way that the season went on. So, yeah, I think there's plenty of motivation there for both sides and should make for a good game. Will it be as good as last year's? Just chaotic, wild Liberty Bowl with Arkansas and Kansas, the 55-53 overtime game? I hope so, because that was one hell of a game to watch.
All right, and then semifinals. The All-State Sugar Bowl, New Orleans, Texas, and Washington. We had 2 different analysts, writers, columnists, talk show hosts on that game. This is last year was a hell of a game down at the Alamo Bowl, in the Alamo Dome. Texas and the firepower of both schools against each other.
I think it'll be a great game. I know I'm going to watch these games. I'm having a hard time picturing myself sitting down and making it all the way through right now. It's so weird because I'm not usually the guy who I'm not going to watch it, but I'm still so scarred.
Dude, I almost hope people don't watch as out of protest in a way. I mean, I really do, because I think that's the only thing that gets through, and I don't know that that's going to matter in the long run either. The college football officials.
Heard Bill Hancock, he knows.
Yeah, he doesn't give a damn. I honestly, I don't want to be a part of a future interview with him, or maybe I do, but that's not my favorite guy in the world. And I think that there will probably be a lot of people, Paul, to your point, that don't want to watch these games, or at least Florida State fans that don't want to watch these games because it's a little bit too painful and a little bit too new. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to talk the playoff games to death probably. I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm picking Texas, I think, right now to win the whole thing. I think I said that on Monday as well, but that's where I'm sticking for right now. And so that means beating Washington, but I think it's going to be a terrific contest and a lot of fun. And these two put on a show last year, right? And a very fun and entertaining game, and I expect something similar this year as well.
All right. Those are the games, the Big 12 teams, either the one